Today we're going to talk about how to write equations from word problems. So before we get into how to write the equations from word problems, I want to go over a little bit of our math vocabulary to better help us understand this lesson. Alright, so first off, we're starting on the left hand side with the blue shape around there. We have coefficients. Okay, so you have the number that you are multiplying by is called the coefficient. The unknown or our variable is the letter that is in the equation, and that has a green box around it. The constant is a number that is by itself that is on the same side as the variable. So in this problem, the constant is a 4. And last but not least, we are going to have to find the total, and the total is going to be the number that is all by itself over there. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at problem number 1. So problem number 1 says the cost of renting a car for a day is $20 plus 25 cents per mile. How many miles did the car travel during the day if the total bill is $41.50? So if you look on the right hand side, we have a little list of how you should, your thought process on solving this problem. So number 1, what number is your total? So if you're going to go through this problem again, what would be the total amount to rent the car? And from reading the problem, you should have found the total amount to be $41.50. And on the previous side, we said the total is going to be by itself. So we are going to, I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to write the total right here. Oh, sorry about that. So we have $41.50. That is our total. That goes by itself. So now the second thing we need to find is what number is our constant. So the constant is the number that stands alone. It would be the number that you are adding or subtracting. So if we look at our word problem, we have the cost of renting a car for a day is $20 plus 25 cents per mile. Okay, so the number that you would be adding would be the $20. So I'm going to go ahead and underline that with green to help you see. $20. That is the next thing we're finding. Down here in the bottom, I'm going to put a 20. And it is a plus because you are adding that to the bill. Next part we need to find is what is the known attached to the variable. Alright, so what are we multiplying by here? So if you look, you have 25 cents per mile. So that word, we've seen this before. You have per here, tells you are multiplying. So however many miles he drives the car, we would have to multiply that. Do we know how many miles he drove the car? No, that is our variable. That is your x. And they charge him, your coefficient would be 25. So it is 20. Ran out of room, so I'm going to go ahead and write it up top. Is 25. So it should be 25 hundredths x plus 20 equals 41.50. That would be our total equation. Alright, now let's go ahead and look at another problem here. We have an author is paid $500 as an advance on their book plus an additional $4 for every book sold. If the author earns $880, how many books has he or she sold? So just like the first one, we have our steps written over here. First thing we're going to do is find the total amount. So what is the total amount that he earns? And the total amount is $880. So the total is $880. So over here, down on the bottom, I'm going to write it. We're going to start doing our equation. So I have. All right, now to go back, let's find out what number is our constant. So what are we adding or subtracting by? So it says the author is paid $500 as an advance on their book plus an additional $4 for every. So our constant, what are you adding or subtracting by in this problem, is 500. 500. I'm going to fill that in on the bottom as well. Okay, the next step is what is our known, or what are we multiplying by? So if you look at the problem here, it says $4 for every book sold. Well, the first thing we know is, or first thing we don't know is, how many books have they sold? So how many books have they sold? That is our coefficient there. We do not know how many books they have sold. That is what we are looking for. And we know that the author makes $4 for every book. So then 4 times however many books he sold plus his $500 advance would equal his total amount earned, which is $880. And that would be our total equation. All right, the last practice problem we're going to go over today. We have Jeremy has saved $440 from his summer job. He plans to set $55 each week aside for his expenses. Several weeks later, he has $110 left. How many weeks have passed? So let's go through here and figure out what would be our total. So you look through the problem and try to figure out what would be your total. The total would be 144. That's what he saved from his summer job. We're going to go ahead and write that down here on the bottom right. All right, so the next step we need to do is figure out what is our constant, what are we adding or subtracting here. So for this problem, it's a little bit trickier than the last two. So I can tell by 55 each week that that has to be the number that I'm multiplying. So on this one, I use a little bit different technique because it's easier to tell what I'm multiplying by than figuring out what I'm adding. So I would have, if I have 110 left, that would have to be my constant. So down here I'm going to write 110. This would have to be our constant. So plus 110. And he has $55 each week. We are looking for how many weeks have passed. So weeks would be our variable. And then the 55 would be our coefficient. Okay, I want you guys to go ahead and go on to the next activity. If you need help, come back and look at this, or go ahead and email your teacher.